Good afternoon. I am here with Henry Cohen, Dr. Henry Cohen, who was president of the State Council from 2011 to 2012. Henry, when you joined the State Council, were you a staff member, a student, a resident, clinical coordinator, or management?
Um, I joined based on the recommendation of Dr. Elena Quattrochi, who is a professor of pharmacy with a specialty in endocrinology at Long Island University, who had recommended me to become part of to join NISHIP. So I joined at that time as a staff pharmacist. I worked at Brookdale Hospital as my first position after completing my Bachelor's of Science in Pharmacy, and I also completed a Master's of Science in Pharmacy at LIU in pharmacotherapy while I worked at Brookdale Hospital.
Okay. Who did you meet that made you want to advance in the organization?
Um, I was impressed by several people in the organization. Kurt Kleinman, Bernie Mell, John Manzo, um, Mark Sinnott, um, were some initial people within NISHIP when I got involved that stimulated my interest. I think who else? Going back a little bit, really, a lot of the past presidents um, as well. People like yourself, Bruce Pleskow, were people that I met, Frank Sosnowski, as well. They were just a whole group of cadre of pharmacy leaders at different positions within NISHIP, some at the higher level positions at that time or completed presidencies, and some board members, et cetera. But I was just impressed with the collaborations, the congeniality, the mission to improve pharmacy practice and advocate for pharmacy practice and continue education that stimulated me at that time.
Okay. Of the past presidents, and you mentioned a few that you've known, what were they like? Who else did you know that as a past president?
Well, working at Brookdale Hospital, as my first position, I got to know Seymour Katz, and always very impressed with the pharmacy operation at Brookdale Pharmacy. Was really, I thought, one of the leading or cutting edge departments at that time. The satellite pharmacy on every unit, which I thought was incredible for the role of the pharmacist and rounding and clinical services, and obviously very structured operational services. So I would say the person I got to know, or at least work with, was Seymour Katz. So he was probably of the past presidents at that time when I first got started, that was most impressive to me.
What challenges did you see as a member, as a board member, and then as the president of the organization that the council had?
And as I just want to go back on one statement also, you had asked me, who I was most impressed with, or someone that I was impressed with as a past president. After leaving my position at Brookdale and completing a post-BS PharmD at St. John's, my first position at LIU was with David Edelman at Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, and clearly he also was a past president who I was who I got to work with, obviously even closer because I worked as a direct report to him, and made a strong impression on me as well. It's just a couple of years later after
That's fine.
so just wanted to share that as well. So
Yeah. And assume you also knew Ray Sandusky at
yes,
Brookdale,
yes, I
who was
knew
also,
Ray. Yes, I didn't interact as much with Ray, but I knew of Ray and his role.
yeah.
But because I worked in those places, I would say, based on that question, those are the two past presidents that I really interacted by far the most. So,
Okay.
okay.
Again, back to the challenges that you saw as a member, or as a board member, or as a president of the organization. Any
Um,
that come to mind?
yeah, so I think two primary areas that come to mind. One is advocacy. Um, and I felt and still do sometimes that the profession of pharmacy is not advanced um, from a clinical perspective as quickly as we needed to. And that was an issue that that has been a concern of mine before my presidency, during my presidency, and even today, as I remain very involved with the New York State Council. We have made a lot of advancements and strides, even most recently, but they've been always challenges with this. I always feel that we're far from getting to where we totally need to be, like provider status, like CDTM everywhere, not just in Article 28 facilities. CLIA wave testing, which we don't have. I mean, it's time for that. Administering medications. Most recently, we administer vaccines. Now we can administer long-acting injectables. But I think we need to be at a place where we can administer any drug, anytime, et cetera. So I think advocacy, I would say, to me, was one of the areas that working with NISHIP appealed to me, because they always were very involved with grassroots legislation and lobbying and Albany Day, and bringing the students and faculty and NISHIP membership to that, and playing an integral role in trying to advance the different bills that we've been looking for. I still remember designing maps of all the states that had where pharmacists can administer vaccines, and New York was one of the 3 states where we couldn't, and all the states where we had CDTM, and we designed maps through PISNI and through NISHIP, and you'd have every 43 states, but New York was on the list always that did not. So advocacy, I would say, would be number one, and the other area is membership. When I became president, I started a membership campaign, and part of that membership campaign was trying to think back a little bit. I think what we did was maybe it was half price membership was $200 a year. I think we did $100 for staff pharmacists, and we were able to recruit several hundred that particular year in the membership drive. And my concern is that that we have a membership of about 2,000. It's been hovering over the many years. But only half of them might be, full-time pharmacists. The other half might be industry and students and techs and residents. And I always felt that we just don't have enough. Working in a hospital like I did, and being very integrated into health system practice, I would lecture all over New York as well. I would do grand rounds at different hospitals in New York City and whatnot. And you'd find that only out of the administrative team, only a handful of staff pharmacists were members, or not enough. So to me, membership was always an issue, and advocacy to advance the profession would say be the top two. And then the third piece is just communication, and making sure that the members get to see the benefits of NISHIP. So if we can have a newsletter, if we can have a journal. When I became president, I started 3 listservs. One listserv for directors of pharmacy, one listserv for clinical pharmacy directors, and one listserv for residency program directors, because I felt that is a membership value add, where we can communicate with each other when we have issues, drug shortages, government funding, whatever it is, recruitment, etc. And that was, one of the areas that I focused on when I was president, that we were able to establish, and we had that for quite many years, where those listservs were very active over time, and I would hope that would be a value add to enhance membership, but also enhance communication. At one point, I was journal editor for NISHIP, for the New York State Council of Health System Journal, for many years, and I also thought that too was value add. It provides communication, but also provides articles in health system pharmacy that pharmacists would value.
How often and where did the board of directors meet? Was it very organized and professional, or was there a lot of camaraderie?
Um, it was very organized and professional and camaraderie. We would meet as a board, if I recall, generally about 4 times a year. And these were very effective meetings. The in-person model is superior, especially now that we have a lot of this video Zoom type meetings. But a lot was accomplished at those meetings, and the networking camaraderie obviously came along with that. But the meetings were very business-like, very structured with agendas that needed to be accomplished, and a lot of great ideas would come out of those meetings. It also helped to develop the next leaders of NISHIP, because you got to interact with those that you realize were really ready for the next step, or were ready to maybe switch a board position, within the board that might be a better fit for them, etc. So again, I found them to be all three: organized, business-like, with camaraderie.
Was there any major mishaps or major issues when you were president, which would be useful for future presidents not to repeat?
I didn't have any mishaps or challenges. What I will say is that what I found most helpful was working very closely with the NISHIP executive leadership. So at that time, I was working with Deborah Feinberg, and her being a pharmacist, she was very integrated in pharmacy-related initiatives, not just the operations of running the council. I think both often fall under the role of whoever that executive is. So as a president who has limited time because I'm still working our full-time jobs and the responsibilities that we have as of our employment, I found that we often could that not only were they great support, but we often had similar initiatives, and we could collaborate together in those initiatives, and that she represented us very well when, let's say, the president can't be there, or when we have to go together, because she shared the same background that we had. So to me, that was an invaluable level of leadership. Frankly, if I had my brothers and we had the funds to do it, I would love to see a New York State Council that is led by a pharmacist who has the time to do all the pharmacy items that they need to do legislatively, meeting with pharmacy leadership throughout New York State, and having an operational leader who can oversee the operations and let that person have the time they need to do more of the networking and relationship building and advocacy, while that operation person makes sure that the office is running well, members are getting satisfaction, meetings are being administered appropriately. To me, that's the ultimate model that I would like to see for the future for the New York State Council of Health System pharmacists. The other advice I would give for anyone who does the presidency is, before it starts, start to make sure, or obviously when you're about to run for a position, you should be thinking about what are some of the initiatives that you want to accomplish when you're president, and do them early in your presidency, because before you know it, time flies and really quickly. And if you think you're going to get some of your initiatives done in January, February, March, as you start planning for the annual assembly, it'll get hard to do. But if you start doing them right away, as soon as you're elected, and work on this in the summer and in the fall, you'll get some nice things done, as I felt I did as well.
When you became president, was it everything you expected?
Um, um, I think it was everything I expected, because I did believe that as president, I would be able to have impact with initiatives that I had. And I had initiatives that I wanted to accomplish: the membership drive, the listservs, for example, which are major endeavors, and I was able to get them done. I knew the support that I felt I would had, and it was that way when with the current executive leadership, that we had at NISHIP. So I would say yes.
Okay. The annual assemblies you mentioned, when you became a member, what were the early annual assemblies like? Where were they held? What was it like when you were president? Was it busy, chaotic, or sedate? And what do you remember? When do you remember them growing to be so big as they are today?
Yeah, I think when I first joined NISHIP, we always used to use the Sagamore quite a bit, but we also had other locations that we went to as well. Um, we even had one, if I recall, we might have had one in downstate New York, as you know, I believe. But I found the meetings always to be an opportunity to really focus on networking and continuing education. Were kind of the two primary focuses of those meetings. And then the other piece of it that comes along with the networking, but an opportunity to also engage in activities that were not just continuing education or not just networking, whether it's the softball game or jogging or going out for dinner with your colleagues in the evenings, etc. Um, I think those were some of the features of the annual assembly that I think are still there today. I think it continues with very similar models, poster presentations. The newer pieces is all the platform presentations that are administered by residents, which we didn't have in my earlier years with NISHIP that now we do. It's coupled those two meetings together. And I think that's also a good thing. I enjoy the House of Delegates meetings and going over policies, as well. And I think that still exists today. As president, it was busy for me because I was president. So I had to attend many meetings and more than maybe I would have if I was just a board member. But I wouldn't say chaotic. I would just say very busy and a good busy.
Generational changes. When you started, did you feel you needed to work your way up to the presidency? New members have a very different philosophy of needing a more evenly divided time between work and play. How do we help them assume these roles in the state council? And will the new members be able to move the council forward?
Yeah, so I think yes, you had to work your way up. You weren't becoming president usually unless you were a board member. Although there are some exceptions and they're legit, but they were legit exceptions. And you had to have some level of experience. I think the most dramatic change that I've seen over the last 2 decades, if you will, is that at the time of my earlier days, the leadership of the local chapters was often the leadership of the health systems. So it'd be directors of pharmacy, assistant directors, associates, managers, and some staff who led the local chapters. Today, you have depending on the chapter, you don't have as much of that. It's been diminished. And you have in some chapters, a lot of either a new practitioner who's 1 or 2 years into their first job. In some settings, you've got, you have residents completing PGY2s doing this, which I don't think is appropriate because of the time commitments. There's less experience going on. And I also see, I'm not sure I'm seeing enough of a connection from those who are in leadership roles within the chapters moving onto the board. I'm not sure I see enough of that going on. And the other piece of it is you also have to have those who are more senior encouraging the less senior to join or get involved or become a board director. Maybe a little bit of less of that is happening because those directors, associates, assistants aren't as involved in those chapters. So, and there are exceptions. I'm not saying, depends which chapter. And, I even think of ours, Royal chapters, the last 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, the leadership is like all new practitioners or residents who are the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. And while that's a good thing, and, I don't discourage the someone who's 1 year out in their job of taking those leadership roles, I do ask, where are the senior people, where are the directors of pharmacy? How come they're not as involved? Where are the assistants, associates, managers? Why are they not in those roles? And then encouraging the new practitioners to get involved. So,
Okay. Any final parting comments or nuggets that you would give to future presidents or future members who want to become president?
I would say that to be the most effective president, and if that's your goal, that it is best to develop some experiences. So you'd like to have a leadership role in a local chapter, and then move up to a leadership role on the board to be a board of director. And you'd like to have several years in those roles before becoming president. It'll certainly enhance your success. And out of staying within the stream of New York State Council, if you have some leadership roles within your employment, that also will help, because you'll be able to use some of those skills when you're working for the organization, although different, but some of those skills are duplicative in both settings. So you want the experience. So the number one thing I would say is try and get the experience doing it before you get into those roles, and then have a plan and how you and plan how you're going to execute it with plan A and B. If it doesn't work, what next?
Okay. With that, we will end this program.
All right.